Hi, I'm Dave Monty and welcome to my video series, Everything Villages. Today we're going to tackle the exciting world of homeowners insurance. We're going to talk about what's going on in the insurance market in Florida, which isn't that great. We are going to talk about what's going on with the roofs, hot water heaters, flood insurance, sinkhole insurance. So stay tuned. Before we get started, as always, the topics that I cover in my videos are in my free 42-page guide, Buying and Selling a Home in the Villages. If you'd like your free copy, just email me right here at davemontysales@gmail.com and I'll send you out your copy. As I stated in the introduction, there's a lot of changes going on in the insurance world right now. We're seeing rising premiums. We're seeing clients who are being forced to replace the roofs at ridiculously young ages on the roof, even as low as 8 years now. We are seeing clients forced to upgrade their hot water heater or update it as it's getting to a certain age, even though there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And we're starting to see insurers closing their doors due to insolvency, which is also going to just create more of an issue. The fewer insurers that you have, the less options that you have, prices will continue to increase and the remaining insurers can dictate terms. So we're starting to see more insurance companies leaving Florida for a couple of reasons. One of them is that some of them are voluntarily leaving to be able to reduce their risk to catastrophic loss, namely hurricanes. Unlike a tornado that comes through and it's kind of a really thin, narrow swath that comes through and it's maximum destruction, a hurricane comes through in a very wide swath and creates a lot of damage, which can be very expensive to insurance companies. So Florida is just a high risk due to some natural disasters. But one of the larger issues that are facing the insurance industry here in Florida are actually lawyers. There's a lack of tort reform here in Florida, meaning that there's no limit on lawsuits. And anytime someone brings a suit against an individual who's insured, the damages could be pretty large. And I could put these up here, but there's billboards all over. Dan got me $2 million. Dan got me $1 million. Dan got me $400,000. And you're looking at these TV commercials like, there doesn't look like there's anything wrong with these people. So how are they collecting such large damages? That's because there's lack of guardrails here in Florida as far as how much you can award somebody in damages. All right, so let's talk about how that specifically relates to homeowners insurance. One of the big things that's going on right now is that insurance companies are forcing clients to reshingle their roofs at ridiculously young ages on the roof. The insurers are getting really tight with what they are going to insure and what they're not going to insure. So why specifically the roofs? Well, a hailstorm happens 7 miles from here and the roofing companies come out in droves and they'll walk and they'll knock on the doors in the neighborhood and say, we can get your roof replaced for free or for the cost of your deductible if we can find that there's damage on the roof due to the hailstorm that we just had. And people go, well, what hailstorm? Well, there's one, a few miles from here, but often the insurance companies will end up replacing roofs anyway. Well, you have a homeowner saying, hey, let's roll the dice and let's go for this free roof. So the roofing company goes up on the roof. Sure enough, they're going to find something wrong with the roof. There's going to be a little ding in this shingle and a little ding in that shingle, and they're going to call it hail damage, whether it is or not. They're going to send the information off to the insurance company. As always, the insurance company denies the claim. The roofing company says, you know what? We know a lawyer who can take this on. So the lawyer goes and sues the insurance company. They win. The client gets their $15,000 or $12,000 to replace their roof. And the lawyer walks away with $100,000 in fees because of lack of tort reform. So the insurance companies, in order to combat this, have said, hey, look, we have noticed that there could be natural damage if the roof hits 10 years old. And so we're going to ask our clients to replace the roofs. A lot of this is happening when someone's buying a home, not necessarily when someone has been in a policy for a while, although we are starting to see insurance companies really push on current policyholders to replace roofs. I work with a local insurance company. They happen to have 43 insurance companies that write policies for them, so they can go and shop 43 different companies. And typically they're going to know which ones are going to give you the best deals, and which ones, based on your individual circumstances, age of the home, etc., who are going to give you the best deal. All 43 of their companies that write policies will insure a roof up to 8 years old. Between 9 and 14, 5 of them drop out, only 38. Between 15 and 19, 13. Between 20 and 24, 6. As you can see, the number of companies willing to write policies for older roofs dwindles as the age of the roof increases. That means that the cost of the insurance premiums also increase. You get fewer insurers, fewer competition, a little bit of an increased demand, so you're starting to see premiums increase. When you're buying a new home, you want to make sure that the roof appropriately aged so you can go ahead and get insurance. The good news for buyers, not necessarily sellers, is that they know in order to provide a marketable home, one that can get insurance, that they are going to have to replace the roof if it's over 15 years old in order, like I said, in order to be able to sell that house. Typically, you're not seeing a premium also put on the price of the home. They're not saying, okay, my home's worth $400,000. I just put a roof on it. Now it's worth $415,000. That's just not the case. The market analysis will show that's a $400,000 home, and that's what they're charging for it, whether there's a new roof or not. Now, there's something new that's going on that just started happening over the last few weeks, actually, is that sellers are now starting to learn about another one, the hot water heater. So the insurance companies now are requiring their clients or new buyers to replace hot water heaters as they're getting to be 15 years old, 20 years old, or they're not going to write a policy, or if they write the policy, there's going to be a very large premium. What we're seeing is not so much that the sellers are now replacing the hot water heaters before they put the home on the market. We're actually seeing buyers and sellers kind of share this cost. And typically this costs about $1,100, $600 plus tax for the actual hot water heater, and about $400 for install. So if you're buying a new home, just know in the back of your mind that you might be putting up $600 for a new hot water heater. If you're selling your home, ideally what you want to do is replace that hot water heater to make it even more marketable. But often you can wait because it's pretty easy to negotiate a share of this expense. Right. Same sort of thing here. Same graph. It's same, starting off with the same 43 companies. And you can see the numbers actually dwindle pretty close to how they dwindled with the age of the roof. And again, the fewer insurers that are able to write you a policy, the more expensive they'll be. All right. So just know that hot water heaters are becoming an issue for insurance companies. All right, now let's talk about the fun one called sinkholes. There are sinkholes in the villages. They happen. Not very often, maybe one every other year or so. And what most people think of a sinkhole is this catastrophic failure under the ground that swallows up a hole. But most sinkhole activity is more of settling of the ground here that can cause damage to a home. Issue is, do you need sinkhole insurance? It costs about $400 to $500 a year, and I'm going to talk about what the different types of sinkholes are and what is covered and what's not. I'm going to start here. Here are all the different types of sinkholes, and I'll talk about each one of these individually very quick. This is more science than it has to do with the insurance, but the majority of sinkholes that you see are actually in the road. They're man-made. It is a water main that breaks, that washes out the sand that's holding up the road, and you got a collapse in the road. And again, that's where most of the sinkholes happen, even here in the villages. A water main breaks in the irrigation system on the golf course. A water main in the street breaks and creates a hole in the street. Typically, these don't affect the homes. Every once in a while, they can. This is considered a catastrophic failure. Now let's talk about the one that everyone sees, and it's kind of interesting because you do need to kind of pay attention to this because it's not as cut and dry as everyone thinks. There's one called a ground collapse sinkhole. And again, this is what people are thinking of. This is called a ground collapse sinkhole right there. That's a ground collapse. These are actually covered by a standard homeowners policy, but it has to meet some very strict requirements in order for the insurance company to pay out on the policy. So let's talk about how this happens. You have limestone, or like a limestone bedrock that's underneath here in Florida. You've got sand that's on top. And what you see here is you see the sand start filling in some of the gaps that happen in the limestone due to natural erosion, or already caverns that happen to be there. Over time, this little land bridge here becomes weak and collapses. And that's what you see here, is you see this big collapse. Insurance companies cover this type of catastrophe on your standard policy. It's called a catastrophic ground collapse. It has to meet 4 criteria for it to qualify to be paid out by the insurance companies. And you know the insurance companies are going to fight this. Okay? So it has to be, number 1, an abrupt collapse. Okay? It needs to be clear and visible to the naked eye. So you have to know that there is a hole there. Not all sinkholes are clear and visible. There has to be structural damage to the foundation in the building, and the structure has to be condemned. It has to be not livable. If it meets all 4 of these criteria, then you would be covered under your normal policy. Now let's talk about the types of sinkholes that are not covered. Okay? Sort of the same thing. What you're going to have here is you're going to have this bedrock, typically limestone, that gets eroded away over time, and you start seeing the whole area just kind of depress. Okay? And same thing here. This is called a Cover-Subsidence Sinkhole. The sand on the top starts to kind of filter down into the cavern. Over time, that sand actually fills the hole in, but you're left with a little bit of depression. These are not visible to the naked eye. Okay, what you end up seeing typically is this type of damage. The problem is this type of damage in these types of sinkholes, number 1, you don't necessarily see the sinkhole. You just happen to know that something caused this damage. Okay, you don't see a big hole. You just see damage on the home. So it doesn't meet the 4 criteria. It's not an abrupt collapse. It's not clearly visible. Okay, there is some structural damage to the home, but most likely you can live in it. So you don't even check off 3 of the boxes with this type of sinkhole. All right. Now, the difference for sinkhole insurance, and it is recommended that you get it here in the villages, is about $400 a year on a $400,000 policy. So my recommendation is to actually go ahead and get sinkhole insurance. People are afraid of this, okay, but that can be expensive to fix. Okay, so and this is what we're looking to cover with sinkhole insurance. So hopefully that's clear. Now let's talk about flood insurance. Everything in the villages is flood zone X. That means that there's less than 0.2% chance of flooding. Everything that you read as far as even changes in the environment, they don't believe there's going to be any impact to Central Florida due to those. So the chance of flood here in the villages is very minimal. Although flood insurance is very inexpensive, so you might want to check it out just for your own protection, but it is not necessary in the villages typically. We covered all of these topics. The roof, right? So again, insurance companies are raising premiums or not writing policies for roofs of certain age, even if the roof is in fantastic condition. I do work with an insurer who can find a policy if you don't want to replace a roof. But often what we're seeing in this market is that the seller will replace the roof in order to present a marketable home. Same goes for the hot water heater. Fewer and fewer companies are writing policies on homes that have hot water heaters of a certain age and they're being asked to be replaced. Here we're seeing more of a shared model where the buyer's paying for half and the seller's paying for half. There has been a history of sinkholes in the villages. Don't let it discourage you from coming here. Most of the sinkholes are typically what you would see, not catastrophic failures, but a little bit of structural damage to the home. I've sold a lot of homes here in the villages, and have yet to see any real structural damage from these, but I do think it'd probably be best for you to protect yourself with sinkhole insurance. When it comes to flood insurance, the good thing is that the developer has done a fantastic job of excavating when they're building new areas of the villages. It is 100% in a flood zone X, which means that that is the best flood zone rating, less than 2% chance of flooding in the villages. Well, hopefully you found this informative and not too boring in the world of insurance. As always, the topics that I cover are in my free 42-page guide, Buying and Selling a Home in the Villages. You can email me right here at davemontysales@gmail.com, and I'll send you out your copy. Please subscribe to the channel, hit like. It helps this video reach more people. I hope to be seeing you around the villages. Take care.